I really enjoy listening to Chris Camillo from Dumb Money. He was recently on a podcast, the Iced Coffee Hour podcast, and there's two clips that I wanted to pull out of there that relate to the markets in general and also connect to Lemonade. And both of these clips really resonated with me, so let's have a listen and then I'll give a bit of my commentary.
We could talk about what they should do or shouldn't do, but it really doesn't matter what we think. The reality is that when you have situations like this where there are a lot of possible outcomes, what we need to do as investors is what I call run scenario analysis, right? So essentially you're looking at every single scenario that could play out and you're assigning probabilities to each scenario. Now, you could actually do that, and you could spend a lot of time running 60 different scenarios of every way that this storyline could play out and the percentages that you assess to each of those scenarios. And then you could look at how many of those scenarios would result in the market being okay and quickly recovering, and how many of those scenarios would result in something catastrophic happening. Well, you could do that, but I'm just going to tell you right now that if you were to go through that process, there are very few scenarios, very few that would result in any type of catastrophic situation that would last for any meaningful amount of time. Right? It would be so irrational. And while people can do irrational things in government for short periods of time, history has shown us that it almost never has durability. The government and policymakers will always revert back to something normal, something comfortable, something safe. Something safe for their party, something safe for their future votes. Okay. So if you just look at the scenario analysis, I feel really, really good that we're going to get through this. Like the exact timing and the exact nature of how we get through it is to be determined. But guys, I have lived through 87. I was young, but my family was in the market and I lived through it and I remember it like it was yesterday. Dave and I were right in the heat of it.
Yeah.
No, 2000 during the dot-com boom and bust. 2008, we were definitely in the heat of it. Of course, COVID was one of our largest investment trades of my lifetime. And this doesn't even feel remotely as scary as any of those when you were to run the scenario analysis, meaning with each of those situations, there was a higher likelihood of leading us into a bad place that could last for a while. Like, I just don't see that here.
So regarding the tariffs, I agree with Chris's take here and really resonate with it that I just don't see that the United States is going to want the sort of scale and size of the tariffs, some of the tariffs that, were threatened on Liberation Day and since then. They're not going to want those long-term standing in place. It's just not in their interest for those kind of scale and size of tariffs to stick around. Maybe some tariffs with certain countries, certain industries, certain smaller tariffs will maybe be put in place and kept there in place. But I don't think the sort of large, full-scale tariffs threats that we've seen are going to last in the long term. And as I said in a previous video, I think my last video, that this sort of market drop from the tariffs is interesting because it's only a policy change. It could easily be reversed and completely forgotten, or negotiated back, new trade agreements with different countries where they meet some kind of middle ground agreement, and quickly dissolve and have a sharp, in my mind, it seems very possible, very probable you could have a sharp V-shaped recovery, which we kind of saw earlier today when I was recording this, where Trump was walking back some of his tariff remarks. And my guess is in the sort of, I don't know the exact time frame, maybe that's over the next month, over the next 3 months, over the next 6 months. I don't think the tariffs are going to last as they were threatened, or as some people were fearing or thinking they might stick around as. So in that sense, because it's not like a massive disease or plague has broken out on the world or some kind of huge natural disaster, it's just a policy change and sort of a policy threat change. I could see this, I could see us having a massive rebound, and we've already seen maybe the first glimpses of that. Of course, there are other scenarios, maybe possible bearish scenarios for the market where the tariffs are held on much longer than I'm thinking, or maybe the trade war escalates further and it becomes more intensive and the market takes an overall hit. But in my mind, it's in everyone's best interest that we have productive, good working agreements between countries, and I think we're going to reach that place again.
And if there's one thing that gets me going, it's a big company that thinks like a startup.
Mm-hmm.
That's Tesla, right? I don't know if you guys have ever had the privilege to work at a big company like Dave and I had earlier in our career. Yeah. We've sold our companies to big companies and we're forced to work there for periods of time. It's a joke. Like when you understand the difference between a large incumbent and a nimble startup, it's like night and day. So if you're able to catch that rare form of large company that still thinks like a startup and is willing to take risk and ask for forgiveness later, that is something I am going to throw money at. Yeah. I'm just going to, because it's such a rarity. Yeah. It hardly ever happens.
And I'll keep throwing money at that until there's an indication that they're starting to be more corporate.
This clip also really resonated with me. I come from an engineering background. I work in a small company now that I'm part owner of, but I worked for several years at some larger consulting engineering firms. And let me tell you, what they say here just resonates so much with me that if you have not worked at a large sort of corporate entity company versus a smaller startup, nimble company, the contrast is just incredible. There's so much bureaucracy and layers and fragmentation and duplicate tasks that are done over and over and over again, and projects that are worked on for months by teams of people only to be scrapped and discarded for waste. It truly is incredible, and it's like having a massive ship, and to change the ship or the trajectory, the culture of that ship is nearly impossible. That's why I'm so bullish on Lemonade as this lean startup, and so bullish on Shai's vision as Lemonade as this autonomous organization that it is as efficient as they possibly can. This is really my thesis and what on Lemonade really that it boils down to is that insurance, it really boils down to this. There's the behemoth legacy insurance companies, and I know as much as they say they're doing AI and they're integrating AI and they're trying to become more efficient, and they're respectable companies and they're smart people that work, of course, at these companies, brilliant people that work at these companies. I know how difficult it is inside of a corporate entity to really shift and turn or move or make a difference in the culture and trajectory of a company like that versus a company like Lemonade still has, significant amount of people, 1,200 and some people, employees there at Lemonade, but a fraction compared to some of these other companies, and really nimble, lean engineering executive departments that have a clear vision of the type of company they're building, this autonomous organization that's going to be hyper efficient. So that, just hearing, if you haven't worked at a big corporate entity or sort of a startup or smaller company, you may not understand both sides or even the difference. But let me tell you, it's really stark difference. And my own experience too, being kind of a voice in the Lemonade community, I've connected with so many people that even work at large insurance companies and just have expressed to me the frustration or feelings how this connects, this kind of this difference in company culture, how much it connects with them. People that have worked on projects trying to implement and change and improve something, a structure, maybe tried for months to improve it or implement it, and then had very poor success at their legacy insurance company that they're at implementing it. This is versus Lemonade, where you see them quickly integrate the latest cutting edge AIs. We've seen examples of them using the phone calls now, and really taking that to a whole nother level where those phone calls are, not just a band-aid phone call AI sort of layer on top of everything else, but are integrated with their whole system, can make changes to people's policy, can probably track and see, hey, what kind of person are you like on the phone? Are you agitated? Are you pleasant and kind? And even track and probably have data signals that tell you a little bit about a person's risk profile. Anyways, those were 2 clips I wanted to share with you. Hope you enjoyed them. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, it's in the bag.